And I remember coming into the village with my mate, and there's bodies lying on the grass, in the doorway, the house on fire, the car engine running with a body. It was fucking mayhem. It was, again, like something out of a movie. And then right in the middle of the village is a guy washing his car like it's a Sunday afternoon. It was his people's village, his people that came in and cleansed it, so he was left alone. But he was brainwashed to it.
Yeah.
And I still, to this day, when I meet with a mate, I say to him, red BMW, you go, yep, red BMW, it fucking happened. Wow. There's a guy and these two kids are running around and there's fucking bodies everywhere. And for me, as a professional soldier seeing that, I thought, how the fuck is this happening? What's going on? Memories sort of reoccur. That's definitely one of them. And now people can turn so quick and be so fucking evil. Yes, so here we are back in the Chunter Basha for yet another little chat, debate, whatever you want to call it. Today, Brian, what should we talk about?
I think we're due for a Billy military episode, talking about your military career.
Okay.
And something that I'm curious about or interested in is, I've watched you on a lot of podcasts. I know you've talked about a lot of things, but I guess what I'm interested in is what chapter or what part of your military career impacted you the most, or do you think about the most really to look back on? And can you kind of dive into that? And we go into story time with Billy about his military career.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, mate. I mean, I think the whole military career has got an impact at some point, and at varying points, various times, that'll come to the forefront of my mind. Not because of the sadness, but lessons learned, all sorts of things about being in conflict, war, and just doing general things in the military. But a lot of it's, like anything in life, is triggered by music, it's triggered by smells, certain words, certain things.
Sense memory.
Sense memory, good word. Like that.
Yeah.
We'll keep that, bro. But yeah, but for me, I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind a lot, and one of the biggest impacts that did have a bearing on my career, was Bosnia, the Bosnia War, which I don't think a lot of Americans know a lot about.
We really don't. That was not something that we learned about in school.
So Bosnia, the conflict in Europe, basically, just over the water from the UK, on our doorstep. Not too dissimilar to what's going on in the world today, with Ukraine and that. Mm-hmm. And obviously everyone's aware of that. But Bosnia itself which was the former Yugoslavia. And
time frame here, just to interject,
yeah,
early 90s?
Early 90s,
Early 90s.
Yeah, and it went on for, don't quote me on this, you'll have to look up on it, I think the actual war itself went on from about 91 to about 95. Mm-hmm. And then it was simmering or dying down late 95, and then thereafter came another phase to that war, which was going after people who were indicted for war crimes, because there were some severe, horrendous war crimes that were committed during that campaign.
Yeah.
And again, the political side of it, I don't really want to go into too deep.
But just the quick backstory, the conflict was dividing up Yugoslavia between religious sects?
Yeah, it was. It was a religious divide, and it was Serbs, Croats and Muslims who'd all been living together for a long time, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And somewhere down the line, there's some falling out and breakups, and then it was, one faction's getting more than the other, all that sort of stuff, stirred by the media, stirred by, propaganda.
Dividing people.
Yeah. And then at some stage the United Nations stepped in, and we, with the regiment, then went across as what they call UNMOs, United Nations Military Observers. We were there to sort of monitor exactly what's going on, get some ground truth, and pass that to the relevant people to intervene at whatever stage and do what they need to do. Mainly at a political level initially, but then eventually you had to come down to boots on the ground and armor on the ground to stop the conflict.
When you first got there, was it a military conflict or was it just observing the situation? When you physically got there,
it wasn't really a military thing. That we were in very, very small numbers, and we were basically surveillance and reporting, to the relevant people on what's really going on, to try and find a solution to stopping the conflict. So it was an awkward sort of thing for us. I think deep down, there was a big worry of it spreading further through Europe, and obviously we needed to be there to just see how that was panning out and the possibility of that happening, but also just to, be prepared should it change from UN to a more sort of fighting role. We were there ready and knew exactly what we were going into. And like I say, and reporting mainly to try and find a way out of it, to stop the war, stop the conflict. So what you had the Serbs, the Muslims and the Croats who'd all been living together for a long, long time. And then this conflict erupted and it was all turning against each other, and it got really, really ugly, really, really messy and really, really quick. And it was not too dissimilar to the Nazi days, what was going on there, genocide, people put into concentration camps, fucking mass killings, ethnically cleansing. The whole thing was going on. And I'm surprised actually that, talking to you, that America didn't know anything about it. I'm sure it was out there, it's just probably not.
It's just nothing we spent any significant time. This is obviously going on the same time as the war in the Gulf.
Yeah, no. This was, like I say, early 90s. I think the first Gulf War was...
Late 80s?
92 as well. So that was going on pretty much around the same time, I believe.
Did you, being in the military, were you much of a student of history and ever studying how military conflicts arise? Because this sounds like, okay, if it's starting with religion, it's going to get violent.
Yeah. No, not really, mate. I looked at the history of the regiment I was serving in and what they'd done, and, I didn't go into full military history of like World War One, Crimea, any of that sort of stuff. Although I always had general interest in what was going on and reasons why, but no, I didn't. So, I took things as they were at the time. Obviously, did my own studies about Bosnia prior to going into Bosnia before we even knew we were going to get involved, because you're always paying interest to what's going on around the world, because at some stage we generally do get involved. So I had a good sort of idea of the conflict there before I went in, but I didn't go into the deep history of back to the days of Tito and all that sort of stuff, when the first sort of conflicts they had there. Although I was aware of it, but I didn't have a deep understanding of it.
So but when you got there, did it take pretty quick to realize this is going to get pretty bad, and this is going to get? I
think by the time I got there, which was fairly early on in the war, it was already bad. It sort of went really, really quick into sort of mass killings, genocide, as I've already talked about, and the ethnic cleansing was horrific, and it was hard to get your head around it, the surreality of it all, going out there and seeing what we were seeing, bodies in the streets, buildings smashed to the ground, villages on fire, people you could obviously see had been executed, not because you think of conflict, you think of war, and to be honest, that was really one of the, if not the biggest war or conflict I was about to get involved in. And you automatically draw a vision of war and conflict, two different militaries fighting each other, and unfortunately there's collateral damage and there's people get caught in the middle, as we all know. But this wasn't quite like that. It was really hard to get your head around it. It took me a little while to understand what was going on. The political situation was a mess. The ground truth, as I was seeing it, was not what I was expecting.
When conflicts are so complex for you to figure out as a soldier, boots on the ground, how does that affect your psyche of going into battle and risking your life, going into heavy combat, thinking, why am I here? Because I feel like a lot of people want to become soldiers to protect their country from threats. Is this a threat that was threatening the UK?
Yeah, there was UK interest. There's all, we don't get involved unless there is UK interest. So there was.
Because interest. The UK is in the UN.
Yeah, we support the UN, of course, part of the UN, and also, the fact that it could have spread further across Europe. This could have been the start of another world war. And there's always interest, because you're going to be involved at some stage anyway, if it gets to that stage. But yeah, I mean, but the thing about this, like I say, and you know, you just said there, although you're a soldier and you get told you're going to go into combat, you're going to do this, you still have a right to say what you feel.
Yeah.
You know, hang on a minute, is this the right thing to do? And working with the regiment and the level we did, you know, we were very privy to a lot of information that most people wouldn't be. So whenever, I can honestly say anything that I did with the military, with the SAS, I was always sure about we're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened after that or somewhere down the line during those conflicts, you know, is to be, I don't know, probably reassess and go, hang on a minute, that didn't seem too right. But I know what we were doing at the time was the right thing to do based on the intelligence that we'd had. You know, in Bosnia, going out there to do what we were doing seemed the right thing to do, but it was a very dangerous position for us because we were in very, very small numbers, working for the UN, who we don't know, and to be honest, didn't trust that much. They don't have the greatest reputation, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So you didn't have the support. You were in very small numbers, so there was always a possibility. And what was going on? You got 3 different factions all fighting.
I was going to say, who are you fighting?
We weren't actually fighting. Like I said, we were monitoring.
Yeah.
And so you had 3 different bunches of people fighting each other, and we're getting caught up in any part of that. You know, one loved you, one hated you, or they all hated you, or they all loved you. And you're getting caught in, you know, crossfire and all this sort of stuff wherever you were. And the whole place was littered with mines, you know, and not marked, didn't know where they were until you're halfway through a minefield and realise, hang on a minute, this is a minefield. And then in between all that, you've got 2 different factions, 2 villages basically, bombing each other, shooting at each other. You had snipers sniping everybody. It was chaos.
So you're truly going in a dangerous combat situation just to monitor?
To monitor and, yeah, to gather the information, find out exactly what the ground truth is, and report it back.
So if you're going in to monitor a situation, are you dressed as a soldier? Are you carrying a weapon?
We were carrying a weapon, but it was only light weapons. I remember at the time, for most of it, the early part, we were just with pistols. Mm-hmm. And we had sort of, you know, rifles and stuff stowed away, ready for use should we need it. But it was, keep a low key, keep a low profile, and totally unbiased to any side. You know, we weren't on any particular side. Although, for me personally, I was in Biach, a place called Biach, which ended up as a little enclave, a little pocket surrounded by fighting all, you know, on either side. A very dangerous place to be, and it was predominantly a Muslim area. And so that's where we started off, in that place there, and that's when the surreality of war, and you talk about what comes to mind of what was happening there and what we were seeing. You know, it was like, as a professional soldier, I know for a fact we'd never allow our soldiers to just go out and kill people, torture people, burn people's houses down. You know, you're there to do a reason. Disarm somebody that's creating suffering to other people, and make the world a better place. That's how I always sort of sum it up. And this wasn't that. It was. You could see it was an opportunity for people to go use a weapon, kill people, and get away with it. And what you had there was, you had these 3 factions all fighting each other. Then you had a lot of support from other nations, UK, America, Spain, France. All these people who just wanted to jump on a bandwagon. I don't think they even knew of what the battle was about. They just wanted to be there and start fucking shooting and killing people. And that's exactly what was happening. And we had a few situations where we come across people being there and thinking, why are you fucking here? What are you doing here? You know, I remember one particular night, and we were up amongst the Croatian line, and they were under fire from the Serbs and the Muslims at the time. And we got caught in the crossfire, so we sort of took cover. I dived into this trench, and there's 3 guys in there. And as I spoke a little bit of the language, I went to say hello in their local language, and they all looked at me, couldn't understand what I said. And then in a broad Liverpool accent, the bloke was, all right, mate, what you doing here? And I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? And he goes, well, we're here to fight. I says, fight for who? He goes, for whoever needs us. Yeah.
They just want to fight. They just want to be tough because they love the glory of war,
These sort of, that's what that breeds. Fucking all these crazy people coming to be in these conflicts for a reason to say they've been in conflict, or want the opportunity to try and shoot somebody or whatever.
They want to be a tough guy. They want to have that glory of living in that.
But in the Cala, they're fucking idiots.
Of course.
I mean, these didn't even know who they were fighting for. I mean, they knew they were the Croats, but they were quite happy to go and jump with the Serbs if that's where the conflict's going to be next. And that's what it was. And I saw a lot of this. And Americans, there were Americans there as well. You know, there's all sorts of stuff going on. It was a real mess. But I think when you talk about things that stand out in your mind was being there with my vision initially, you know, my perception of what to expect. It's a big conflict in Europe, and seeing people in uniform fighting people in uniform. Of course, there's always the crossfires and people get caught up and stuff. But I remember one particular time we came across a village, and the whole village was getting smashed. We were watching it. It was like a scene from a movie. It didn't seem real. It was kind of exciting in a weird way. Yeah. But then you realise these are real fucking people getting killed here. And then as that died down, and the people, it was basically a place getting cleansed. And once it had been done, and we got a chance to get down into the village, we got down there, and on the way in, there's bodies everywhere. You could smell death, that stink of death. Mm-hmm. Vehicles burnt out, houses burnt out. And I remember looking across into an orchard, and there was a massive pile of something covered by a blue polythene tarpaulin. You know, like a blue canopy thing. And I just had a sneaky feeling that's bodies. Anyway, we got to the edge of the village and did as best we could. And then the rest of the troops came in to secure it, all that sort of stuff. And on the way back out, I said, let's just check out this orchard. So we did. And basically, you could see all the body fluids in the grass where bodies have been dragged through, not just blood. Mm-hmm. You could tell it was, you know, plasma and blood, and it stunk. And then you just saw this big thing of tarpaulin, and I remember going over to it going, oh my God, what the hell? And there's a few of us there. There's me, another lad from the regiment. I think we had a Dutch guy there for some reason who was driving us, and somebody else. And we moved the tarpaulin, and it was just stacked with bodies. And it was everything from children to soldiers to women, old men. And they'd been killed in various stages. You could see some that were lying there had probably been killed days or weeks. Yeah. Right up to, you know, the old man who I remember lying on the top. I can remember seeing the old man, big old guy lying there. And you could actually still see all the pepper where they put the weapon right next to his head. You know, and he'd probably died hours ago. Yeah. And it was just, and when I saw that, sorry, that's what I was coming on to, was things you think about. And I remember standing there trying to get my head around it. How did this happen? How did it get to this stage? What soldiers would allow another soldier to do that? And it just wouldn't happen. And I was saying to myself, the only way I could sort of picture it was UK going to war, as an example. You know, on the island of Great Britain, you've got England, Scotland, Wales, and England, all living on the same island, turning against each other. And it's like the English army going up to Scotland to you know, strengthen the borders, coming back and find that the Welsh have come over the border, burnt your houses down, killed your children, killed your family. You've come back absolutely furious. Right, when we go across, we're going to... And that's how I was trying to understand, this is what's happening here. But actually what it was lunatics having the freedom, or they fought the freedom to do what they wanted. And they were like, you know, blinding kids, killing kids, creating concentration camps and doing horrific, horrendous things.
So, and I was actually going to ask that question, because when you see just what you view as pure evil and evil actions of other human beings, you wonder what drives them to that point. Obviously, there's no justification for it, but you wonder, were they lunatics before they came in, or did they become lunatics? And are these people also, did it happen to their own families, and they feel justified in returning that same level of evil to the people that they view brought it upon them?
I ask myself the same questions, Brian, you know, and obviously I'll probably never know the answer to most of it. Yeah. What I do know was the people that ran this on a big scale, i.e. ran the concentration camps, ordered the executions, ordered the torture. At the end of the Bosnia War, so I'm jumping forward now, so what I was talking about there was the early stage of getting your head around it, seeing what was going on. as it developed, and it then went from UN to what they called I4, the intervention force, which is now boots on the ground, smashing the barriers down, and that's what brought it to the end in the end for the finish. And then later on, we had the opportunity to go after the people who created these crimes. Mm-hmm. So for them, they'd preempted all this. They were lunatics. Now, knowing from what I know, going after the ones we went after, and we went after quite a few, and we got them, you get to know the whole history. You get the whole files on these people, what they've done, who they are, why they've done it. And it's always collaborated, which means, it's not one person said they did it. It's 2, 3 or 4 people have gone, confirmed the same story at different times of the people that had done this. And as an example, one of the people that we went out was absolutely fucking evil. Before we went after him, I went over and did some surveillance on him, and another buddy of mine followed him for a while, got more information from certain people, but they'd already had a big file on him anyway. Some of his own troops that worked with him, that he got them to commit crimes on children and other people, and I don't need to go into the great details, you can work that out, couldn't live with herself after doing it. After the war, we're like, I did do that, but I was made to do it by this person. And that was collaborated by people who've actually done the crime with him. Mm-hmm. So we knew, going after these people, these are the right people to go after. These are fucking evil people. So back to the question of why did they do that? I don't believe from the history and the stuff we learn about them, they had a particularly bad childhood. They just had an opportunity to kill and maim, and thinking they could get away with it. And it became, fucking sadistic, but to them, probably the normal. They were doing it so much. I'm no psychologist. I don't know how, their minds would have worked, but prior to that, they were normal people. They had normal jobs. They lived in the same areas of the people they were killing. And that's what I couldn't get my head around initially.
That's fascinating to me, because if it's like, okay, are you born evil or do you become evil? And if these people were living normal lives, I live a normal life, what would drive me to then 3 years from now, I'm acting the same way they do?
Well, look what's happening now. You get people going into school shooting innocent kids. Why? Because they got bullied at school?
Yeah.
Fucking bullshit. The thing is, people can turn like that and would.
Scary.
You could see how quick, something could escalate here. Propaganda, people spreading a word that's probably not true, media spread where you think, oh my God. And then you just sort of feeling like you've got to do something or react to something. I mean, you just don't know. I think everybody's got a breaking strain of some sort. Not to say it's evil, but you'll do something you feel you have to do in a desperate situation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I think what it is, it's something that can escalate pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like if you had a breakdown completely with the law and the government, everybody's got fucking guns. Mm-hmm. Everybody think they've got to defend themselves. All of a sudden you get paranoid. Somebody comes to your gate, you're fucking shooting people. Yeah. It can escalate pretty quickly, and that escalated really quickly. And I might have told you this story, and here's another weird, fucking surreal story where we ended up coming into a village that was mixed back in the day. Serbs, Croats, and Muslims all lived in there, but it was predominantly Croats. And then I think it was Arkan's Tigers, if you read about that fucking lunatic. Him and his people went in there to ethnically cleanse the village, left there the Croats that were, friendly to him and their people. And I remember coming into the village with my mate, and there's bodies lying on the grass, in the doorway, the house on fire, the car engine running with a body. It was fucking mayhem. It was, again, like something out of a movie. And then right in the middle of the village, there's a guy washing his car like it's a Sunday afternoon. It was his people's village, these people that came in and cleansed it, so he was left alone. But he was brainwashed to it. Yeah. And I still, to this day, when I meet my mate, I say to him, red BMW, you go, yep, red BMW, fucking happened. Wow. There's a guy and these 2 kids are running around and there's fucking bodies everywhere. It was just so...
They're just numb to it, they become used to it, or are they just delusional or trying to blind it out?
A bit of both, but it just... Yeah. But it happened. And for me, as a professional soldier seeing that, I thought, how the fuck is this happening? What's going on?
Yeah.
As we just started with what you remember and what memories sort of reoccur, that's definitely one of them.
Wow.
And now people can turn so quick and be so fucking evil. And it's awful, mate. And you can only imagine what's going on right now in Ukraine and
and then also Palestine
and Palestine and yeah, it's just fucking horrific. It's easy to go war, conflict, and what you remember is war and conflict, the horror, but there's a lot more to it. There's a surreality of it, which I've touched on very briefly. But I think one of the biggest and key moments was, in a place like that when all that chaos is going on and evil, there are some beautiful people there, and we met some of the nicest people on the planet, some of the bravest people on the planet. And the one I want to quickly mention now is we had, although I could speak a little bit of the language, and most of us could, because that was one of the languages that I learned to speak, you were never good enough in conflict to be able to interpret properly. So we had interpreters, and we had a bunch of female interpreters, young ladies from Bosnia, and they were fantastic. And in particular, one was a girl called Cala, and Cala was a Muslim girl, worked with us, but no matter what we asked or said in front of anybody, whether the Croats, Serbs, she was brave enough to say it exactly as we were saying it, with the aggressive tone, with everything, which you didn't see with a lot of the interpreters. They kind of shied down and melted it down a little bit. She never did. She was straight to the point and bang. She was absolutely phenomenal. Now, Cala was with us more or less every day. She was in minefields with us. She was in crossfires. She got mortared with us. She got bombed with us. She was absolutely a true warrior. And I remember one day, I don't know, we'd been out there quite a few months and the fighting was intense. Each village was getting smashed one by one, by various, they're all doing the same sorts of Muslims are doing it to Croats, Croats to Muslims, Serbs to Croats. They were all at it. It was fucking chaos. And then I remember one particular day we had a report of a particular village getting hit. And I don't think I probably should say exactly which one it was, but a village getting hit. So we went down there, myself, my buddy, I'll call him Jay, and Cala. Anyway, we're sneaking around trying to get through the front line. We covertly make our way on foot through this sort of bit of a plantation over this rugged ground, and we end up in like an old bastion, an old fort area. And as we're going through it, then we realise we're in a minefield. And we're like, fuck. So from where we were, we had a good overview onto the village that was supposedly under attack. And it was under attack, So we decided we'll stay where we are. We're in a minefield. We know we can see left and right of us. We had enough room around us to be able to sort of move left and right and just be able to observe. But then we got a problem later on, find our fucking way back out of it, which obviously we did. But so at the time, so we got to picture the scene now. So we're now in this sort of rugged area, sort of croppy, dirty old bastion, smashed down walls type thing. High ground, looking down over a river and onto beautiful fucking panoramic view of this gorgeous village. So we're there, Kamala's behind us, and she used to always carry this little transistor radio. Just because you didn't want to hear the fucking noise, and bearing in mind it's her country. So me and Jay, we're observing and reporting what we can see and what's going on, and the village was under attack. It was getting smashed. Literally, we're watching gunfights in the street, houses being set on fire, people trying to drive away and getting shot in cars. It was again like a movie scene, and it was kind of in a weird way exciting, but and surreal, and you're like, wow. So we're watching this battle go on, and as it's getting more and more intense, Kamala's playing a radio at the back. We're just talking amongst ourselves, me and Jerry, and I can hear her crying. And she's got a radio on. She could have it as loud as you want because there's bombs going off. No one else is going to hear it. So she's got a radio on, and Hotel California's playing the song Hotel California. And I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking, watching through binos, passing the binos over, listening to it, and then I can hear crying. Cala crying, and I'm thinking, oh, jeez. And I sort of nudged Jay, and I went, and he goes, yes, she's really upset, she's crying. I went, oh. So me, naive as I was, I turned around to Cala and says, Cala, if the song Hotel California is upsetting you, you're probably thinking about a boyfriend or something, then just turn it off. And mate, she looked at me and Jay and just stared me straight in the face like you're looking at me now, and she went, Billy, that's my house. It was actually her village. And it was her family that were getting. I was like, oh my! I wanted to roll over onto a mine.
The house is in flames.
Yeah, the house was being smashed.
And her family's inside.
Well, we couldn't actually see what was inside, but the house was getting hit. The village, it was her village, and we were like, oh my God.
The irony of that song playing over such a tragic situation, such a peaceful song, vacation, sipping drinks.
Yeah, and we were watching this war scene unfold, and it was actually her village.
Wow.
Her people, and I can't even remember the last, kind of what did we do next, and I think we just decided we better sort of withdraw from there, and I think that's what we did. So we eventually got out of it, reported what we had to report, and the UN did whatever they did and all that sort of stuff. But I remember getting back thinking, and Jay looking at me and going, mate, if you've ever put your foot in it, that was the biggest time ever. And it was, and of course I didn't mean it. But I remember Kamala coming to us, obviously very upset, but says, look, that you didn't know that was my village. I didn't say anything. And she was great, and she carried on normal business the day after. Luckily, what I will say is, and I know a family did survive. They'd already luckily escaped and withdrew and moved into another part of the city. But at the time, we didn't know that,
Yeah.
And, and she just carried on being the trooper that she was for the rest of the tour, helping us out. And at the end, I'll never forget, she gave me this. And this is the flag. It's actually the Muslim flag, the Bosnian Muslim flag.
I'll help you hold it up.
Yeah, if you hold it up, you hold that corner there. In fact, I'll take that corner, but I'll take the one nearest to you there. So, she gave me this. And in the corner it says, remember B. Krupa, the village, Hotel California, Jay, you and me, Bosnia loves you, I do as well, Kamala.
Wow.
And I've kept that. I literally found that amongst all my sort of stuff about a week ago before I came back over to the States.
Wow. You going to meet up with her again?
After we left the conflict and the war, you kind of not allowed really to stay in touch.
This is 30 years ago.
Yeah. Now I'd love to know where she is. Very smart girl, very intelligent. I know she was educated in Germany. She's probably a lawyer now, or maybe retired, I hope. But I'd love to. So if Kamala is out there, I'd love to catch up with her. But, yeah.
That's an incredible story.
And a true story. So
now the Americans never learned about the Bosnia conflict growing up. Well, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I'm pretty sure they never taught it. Now they know at least some of the realities of it and the humanity behind it, just the ugliness of. Oh,
it's horrendous. There's a good video that explains of why and how it all broke down, which I didn't know properly, if I'm honest, and how easy it is to manipulate people and get people to turn against each other in order for people to take control. It's a great example of it, and it's almost hideous and disgusting the way those things happen, but it's worth looking at. Because happening again, I think.
There's a consistency in almost every war. It seems like that's a key element of it.
Yeah, but it's there to see. So,
all right. Yeah. Well, let's wrap that up as this episode of the Chunter Basha. That was very interesting.
Yeah, that was a little touch of Bosnia. There's a lot more stories of Bosnia and other places, but yeah, when the idea, as you asked, was key moments and things that come back, and it doesn't. I don't have PTSD. It doesn't haunt me, but certain things, especially I hear Hotel California. Of course, I have a little smile on my face and a little bit of sadness mixed in with that, and just certain things remind me of. And it's what is interesting is how quick we forgot about it, and not really learnt the lessons from it. It's happening again now, Ukraine, and as you know, in
Israel and Palestine.
Israel and Palestine, and I guess it'll continue, unfortunately.
It just shows us, for me in my life, it gives me perspective. Anytime that I'm going through stressful moments, sad moments, I think about how lucky, America's not a perfect country, but we're a lot better off than people in other parts of the world. Like, we're not exposed, in normal suburban everyday society to just the realities and harsh tragedies and terrors of conflict and war. So, well, all right.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Another one done.